But the second element is called the business model canvas. Has anybody heard of the business model canvas? Awesome, a few of you have. Okay, right. So the business model canvas says there's elements that are really sort of fundamental to your business that you need to go out and prove and test each of those segments before you start down the path of growing your business. And the third element says the one thing you need to do as entrepreneurs is not just do this business model canvas yourself, but you need to get out of the building. Entrepreneurship is a contact sport. You need to go out and talk to potential customers, partners, suppliers, using that business model canvas to develop, the question marks are hypotheses or assumptions that you have about your customers, about the value proposition for your product or service, about the channels to reach them, about the key partnerships that you might need in order for that to happen. And instead of going out and talking to them about your product, you're talking to them about these assumptions to get some validation. And you repeat this process over and over until you get enough answers that you feel you've validated those assumptions. So it's an iterative process that you go through to get out of the building, talk to potential customers, use this framework, business model canvas framework, and determine the approach for the business model for your business. So what we've been doing and what we're doing at UCF is an I-Corps program. It's funded by the National Science Foundation. And the National Science Foundation said, we're funding a lot of research at universities across the United States. And that research needs to go from lab to the market. So what works, Steve Blank is the developer of, one of the co-founders of the program. And he got together with the National Science Foundation and put together this program to go into the universities. So we've been implementing it. Our implementation, what we do is we start with a team. So we form a team around a researcher, which we call a PI, a primary investigator, an entrepreneurial lead, which is a student, a graduate student or some student that wants to be part of the team, and then an industry mentor. And we form those together, or they form together into a team, and we put them through a 10-week process where over the 10 weeks, all they're doing is each week they're doing 10 to 15 interviews based on assumptions on the business model canvas to validate or pivot, change those assumptions. If the assumptions aren't proving correct, then they pivot. And they meet once a week on Friday. They present to the cohort, to the other teams, and to a faculty teaching team that consists of entrepreneurs and investors. And they get feedback every Friday. So during the week, they learn a concept, they apply the business model canvas, they test, and they come back. And at the end of 10 weeks, they do a presentation about what they've learned through the 10-week process about their business model. Now again, we haven't even gone to the point where they're starting a business. At the end, they can make a go or no-go decision. Is there something here? Do I need to do more of it? Or do I need to look at something else? So what I have, just to give you an indication of how this works, is one story of those 8 that we did earlier this year. Sorry. Okay, that's okay. It's great. There's a link on our website to these success stories, so I'll make sure that that gets out to everybody. So what we're doing, and one of the reasons I wanted to come here and talk about our program, is because it's not just UCF-centric. So we are in the process of building what we're calling the Florida Innovation Network. We want to see, so this methodology is being used, it started in California at Stanford and Berkeley. It's being used across the country, and we are starting the Florida Innovation Network here to really champion this methodology and approach for startup companies. So we want to see it grow and expand. So one of the things I want to do is to get everybody here to drink this Kool-Aid. If you have a startup company, you need to think about using this methodology, and we're here to provide resources to help you do that. So for those of you that are entrepreneurs, I want to encourage you to learn and apply this methodology. And the way you can do that, you don't need our help. The way you can do that is Steve Blank has a website, steveblank.com, which is up in the left-hand side there. He's got all the resources there that you can use to learn the methodology. There's books called, The Business Model, The Business Model Generation. There's also a book called The Startup Owner's Manual. And when we get back to there, there's a website. Well, if everybody's familiar with Udacity, on Udacity, there's a whole series of videos that cover each section of the business model canvas. So you can watch a short video, learn about that element of the business model canvas, and get your team together to do this, implement this within your company. If you haven't formed a company, use this methodology right now to just do it yourself, or get together with, get others to work with you to use this methodology. The other thing that we have as our part of our program that I would encourage you to do when you're using this is to get a mentor. Get some sort of entrepreneur, experienced entrepreneur who understands the methodology and the approach to give you feedback. We use them in our program not to do the 10 to 15 calls per week that the team is doing, but to give the teams this outside perspective on what they're hearing. Well, maybe you need to ask this additional question, or have you thought about this, or are they really saying this? So the second thing that we're really looking to do is build this mentor network. So build a network of mentors who understand the methodology and are willing to volunteer their time to work with you as an entrepreneur to go through this methodology and approach. We have an initial group that was mentors with our first cohort. We're expanding that network now. So if you're interested and you're in the audience and you want to be a mentor, we're here to help support you in the training and the learning of that. The third element that we want to see happen in order to expand this methodology and approach and create the Florida Innovation Network is we want to see more of the investors using this, working with their entrepreneurs and using this methodology and approach. So I put an example up here of Florida Angel Nexus. Florida Angel Nexus is one of them. If you go on their website, underneath entrepreneurs, you will see that they have links to the business model canvas and the customer discovery doing this process. And we're going to see more and more of that as we build out the innovation network. And the last one is something that we've recently announced. So we want to see more of the entrepreneurial support organizations. We want to work with organizations that are supporting entrepreneurs to adopt this methodology. So Starter Studio is the first one that we've announced. We're working closely with them to add this in as one of the tools that they're using to work with the companies that get selected. But we would like to maybe even, as we host a 1 million cups, maybe we devote that 1 million cups to people giving their business model canvas and getting feedback from the audience. That's a key part of how this works. It's not just that there's experienced teaching teams that are doing this, is that the entrepreneurs in the audience also give the feedback. So with that, we've got a plan. We're working towards it. We'd love to I'd love to answer any questions you have about the business model canvas or what UCF I-Corps is doing or the Florida Innovation Network. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. So guys, yes, big round of applause. We're going to have a little bit of an abbreviated Q&A, so about 10 minutes. So just because their model is more of an entrepreneurial support mechanism than any business, but would love for you guys to start out. Who's got my first question? There we go.
Good morning. Do I have to, you mentioned about having a business or an idea. What if I already am working on a startup? Is this the program? Can I still, would this be the good fit for me?
Yeah, thank you. Good question. So, yeah, in fact, this methodology is used by existing businesses who want to investigate a new market, and is used even, one of our mentors is from Harris Corporation, and Harris Corporation uses it to look at new potential technologies and is it a new business unit that they could develop from that. So it is appropriate. I would also love to hear from anybody who's used the business model canvas, since I couldn't show the video. So if anybody has a testimonial of how they've used it, it would be great too. Yes, you have a question? So, sorry.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We don't code, we don't program, we don't software. We're a costume design company that serves the theme parks, the cruise ships, the theaters. We need a Marcus Leonis, a prophet, to help us get through this rough time and make it. We've got a solid dream for the future. How do we find a prophet, a Marcus Leonis? And money would be great. We'd love angel capital. But how do we find someone to help us turn this dream into reality? And it's more than a dream.
Great question. So everybody heard the question, right, about your particular business and how do you do a profit. The beautiful thing about the business model canvas is that's exactly what you're kind of teasing out by asking these questions. So in your case, you're not going to the theme parks and asking them about how do they currently, what are their needs for costume design, right? So you're going to go and you're going to understand how they currently, you're going to ask questions about how do you currently source your costume design? What's the biggest challenges that you have today with the suppliers that you're getting from? What would make either, what's a pain that they're having or a gain that they want to see, like maybe the turnaround time, maybe the fitting. You want to tease that out by having a conversation with them. So it has nothing to do with your business. It has everything to do about what's the problem from their perspective. And the more you do that, the more people you talk to, and let's just go down the path with, Disney. Let's just say you pick one of the theme parks. It's not just talking to one person within that company. It's talking to, maybe you talk to some of the costume characters and find out from their perspective, you know what, hey, we'd really love costumes that aren't so hot because we're in Florida. And so you learn from them and understand what the value is back to them. So because the costumes aren't designed so to deal with the Florida heat, we can only be in our costume for an hour before we're overheating, right? And so then, now what that means is you can go back to Disney and you can start looking at, okay, well, because they have to turn these people over every hour, they have a lot of training to do, right? So you're starting to develop now a value proposition that's completely different from what it's going to cost you to make the costume, right? So now you can, over time, develop this value proposition for this market and talk to more and more people to solidify that. And at the very end of that, in that you're building a profit, right? Because the profit is the difference between what that value proposition is that you can sell it to them for and what your costs are. And that's part of the business model canvas. So see, it's a whole different way kind of thinking about your business and what you're doing in order to validate these assumptions about your business model, which leads to the profit. Good question, thank you.
Hey Robin, thanks. So during your presentation, a lot of cool things. I was getting a little bit confused about the connection to UCF. You started off by mentioning students, but it sounds like you're trying to appeal to more than just current UCF students. So what's the connection to UCF and to people who aren't part of UCF?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, so UCF has always been a really good citizen in the Central Florida community. We want to see entrepreneurship thrive, right? We want to see more and more entrepreneurs because that creates this culture of innovation, this innovation network, right? So we're funded to do the program on campus. We're working with community partners and spreading this, trying to build this culture and methodology outside. So as I said, so Starter Studio is one of the first communities. We want to support any entrepreneur who wants to use the methodology. We're developing the mentors that can help you. We're developing the programs and the resources that you can use to use the tool yourself. Yes, you had a question?
Okay. Yeah, along the same lines, how does someone get involved in this as a company, as a startup company?
Yeah, so you can, several ways. So one is, like I mentioned, so Starter Studio is one of the first, but there will be other community partners coming online. If you don't want to do it yourself, you can do it yourself, right? And we'll work with you to identify mentors that can work with you through the process. We want to create communities like maybe 1 Million Cups, where you can come and go through the process or form a group around going through the process. Those are the ways. Yes, sir. Hello.
You've stepped around this, so I'm going to hit you with a pointed question.
Okay, I love it.
Specifically,
yes.
One, if I wanted to be directly in the I-Corps program, do I need to be a student at UCF? Followed with, if I do not, what are my costs? And if I do, what are my costs?
Okay. So I'm sorry if I've stepped around the question. So the program that we're operating that I described is on campus for UCF students. The next step is you can apply to Starter Studio. So Starter Studio is a community affiliate that we're building out as part of the network. We will have more community affiliates over time, but they're the first one we've announced.
Okay, as a UCF student, does it, so if I just enrolled for a random class at UCF, I then am a UCF student, I can apply and join this group?
Yeah, so you can apply. There is a selection process. You can apply. We also have Blackstone Launchpad, which is on campus for any student that's starting a business. So the I-Corps program and the Business Model Canvas are used by the Blackstone Launchpad for any student at UCF. Yes.
Okay, so as a member of the first Starter Studio class and the third now, I wanted to kind of get you to explain kind of exactly what these two gentlemen have asked a little bit more in depth. They're starting, UCF is finally getting it, in my opinion, right? I'm a UCF graduate, and they're finally understanding, hey, there's a startup community here, technology community here, we need to be involved. Can you help explain it and bring it full circle of what the difference between I-Corps, Starter Studio, the UCF Incubator, Launchpad, all of these little different organizations that seem to be working apart from each other, but using the same methodology of the lean startup and things like that. Can you kind of bring that full circle for us and understanding how they're working together? Are they working together? Are they different from each other?
Yeah, so again, another good question. We have, I think, UCF has, through the incubation program, always been not just centric to the university, but outside in the community. Now, we haven't had a presence in downtown, right? So the newest sort of addition is downtown, and that's not UCF, that's in partnership with Starter Studio as an accelerator. So the business model canvas, the lean startup, is a methodology and approach that we're advocating the use of. Each of the Starter Studio and any of the entrepreneur support organizations can use and adapt this methodology, which is what they do, for their particular audience. So everybody, all of the entrepreneur support organizations have different types of audiences. So they take this methodology and they adapt it. And that's the same thing that our business incubation program is doing. They're using the methodology. And that's the same thing we're encouraging to happen. So we're collectively working to build the entrepreneur ecosystem throughout Central Florida.
And just to piggyback off that, is this the first step of that? Are students coming to this program first, then working through it, going to Starter Studio? Are they going to Launchpad? Like, are we trying to build like a system, if you will, or are they individual organizations?
Well, Yes and no. So if you're out in, if you're a researcher and you use this methodology to determine you're going to start a business, you may want to go from there into the incubator and research park. You may want to go form your company in Melbourne because that's where you've got a strong team. So it's not necessarily the location of where your business is, it's that wherever you are in your entrepreneurial journey, we want to work with places that you can go to for support resources. The other element that UCF has is a program called Grow Florida, which Grow Florida is for companies throughout the state of Florida that are at least 1 million in revenue and have 10 employees or more. And the idea there is that you've got proof of product or service and proof of market, and what you need to grow from that 1 million to the 50 million is a whole different set of programs and services, and so we offer that, and that's offered through organizations throughout the state. So,
all right, we are at the point where we need to wrap up, and I want to ask our final question, but I also, for this particular audience, want to wrap into that question. Our final question at 1 Million Cups is always, what can the community do for you? And I want you to touch, if you would, on that, on the mentorship aspect and how people can become mentors, because I think there are a lot of people in this audience that might be good for that program.
Yeah, so the Mentor Network is a program we're developing that is not UCF-centric, but is community-centric, meaning that the mentors are a Central Florida pool of people who have training in these different tools and methodologies and can work with you as an entrepreneur and participate. So we have a program to train mentors and to become part of the mentor community, and we're hosting that, and that's, so anybody that wants to can contact me to get involved with that. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, so thank you very much. If anybody is needing a refill of their coffee, please go ahead and go on out there and get some. And remember, we have lots of donuts because we're sending David off and telling him we love him very much. He's no longer going to be an official organizer here with us. So he does like hugs, as you all know. So make sure that you give him a hug goodbye for his last hug. And we see that Ron, one of our other organizers, is in the back of the room. So shout outs to Ron. Hi, Ron. So we'd also like to make sure that you guys know at the end of this meeting, we're going to have some very special announcements that we want you to know about. So stay tuned. Nobody leave right away. And I'd like to welcome to the stage Steve, who's going to be presenting with say it for me again? Lagniappe. Thank you.
Thank you. Clicker game strong?
It's strong now, yeah.
All right. Got a button up. All right. Hi guys, so I'm Steve with Lagniappe. Lagniappe is a Creole word. I picked it up in New Orleans while I did my undergrad at Tulane University, and it means, roughly translated, a little something extra. It started in the marketplace, and it's the idea that if I'm a merchant and you're doing business with me, I might throw in something for free, just because I like you and I appreciate your business. So a little Lagniappe, a little something extra. If you've ever bought a dozen donuts at a bakery and come away with 13, the 13th donut is Lagniappe. It's interesting to me that some things age well and they appreciate in value and some things don't. So if we take a bottle of whiskey, for example, 50 years later, it's a nice bottle of whiskey, but a bottle of milk doesn't do so well after 50 years. Furniture, mid-century modern furniture is all the rage right now. If you have a piece that's well preserved, it's going to fetch top dollar. But mid-century appliances like this hairdryer are not really commanding top dollar on eBay or at the antique store. So we're asking the question about fabric. So it could go either way, really. It could be in someone's attic, kind of getting eaten by moths, or in a storage unit collecting mildew. Or we could take antique and vintage fabric and make it into handmade accessories for men in limited quantities and do something new with it. And that's what I've been doing for the past couple of years. So I was watching Project Runway with my wife because marriage, And, and I was like, this is really cool. So I just sat down in front of YouTube and taught myself how to sew. One of the projects that I worked on really early on was a bow tie, and it was terrible. But I kept on kind of pressing in until I felt like I had something cool, and I took it to a friend who is in the fashion industry, and he was like, this is pretty good. You could maybe go somewhere with this if you wanted to. And I said, why not? I have my summers off as a teacher, so I can kind of pour into that and spend some time, and so that's what I've done. So we launched a website a couple of months ago, about 2 months ago. It's built on WordPress and WooCommerce. We use Stripe for credit card processing, for those of you who care about such technical details. And we try and keep it really clean, really sleek. I want the brand to feel premium because we're going to charge a bit of premium prices. So go to a product, there's going to be a couple shots, you can add it to your cart. That's the tie I'm wearing today. Isn't it handsome? I made it with my own hands. I'm a craftsman. Isn't that crazy? We did okay the first couple of weeks and then haven't really seen a lot of traffic since then. There's been people trickling in. So I didn't plan on using like local pop-ups as part of my business model, but I have. So I've been to Cloak & Dapper, which is a menswear store over on Lake Ivanhoe, and done a trunk show over there. And I've also done just some local pop-up markets. No one's gonna take the bait. That's awesome. There it is. If you're a necktie wearer, here's a necktie. If you don't like neckties, give it to a friend who does. So the main sort of marketing I've been doing is reaching out to Instagram influencers, just kind of cold emailing them saying, hey, if I ship you a tie, would you wear it in a shot? And sometimes they're like, yes, and sometimes they're like, that's $1,000 for me to do that. And I'm like, awesome, your life is different than mine. So a couple of guys wearing our stuff, getting a lot of likes, but it hasn't converted to a lot of sales. And I haven't pushed sort of a major rollout, and the reason why is that there's a lot of people doing this. So this is a representative sample of some brands who are active in this space, and I'm not including the J. Crews and the Brooks Brothers and the Gaps of the world. These are independent brands that if you're on Instagram and Twitter fashion, you know about these guys. I'm going to eliminate all the brands that are just exclusively importing stuff from China that's made there, that's made from kind of crappy materials. Now I'm going to take away everyone who only offers bow ties. They're pretty easy to do. I figured it out as a novice sewer. So the brands that don't have anything other than bow ties, they're gone. And now I'm going to take away everyone who's not using any vintage fabric. And what's left is these three companies, General Knot, Carico, and us. The first two are well established. They've been around for about 5 years each, and they offer some extra things, belts. Carico does shirts. Their price point is a little bit higher than us, which is intentional for me. I feel like they have an established presence, so we need to kind of announce ourselves in a way that might entice people to consider us since we're new. You'll notice that shirting is on there, and the reason I haven't really pumped up the brand yet is that we're an apparel company. There's so many brands that are pigeonholed as accessory companies, they don't make a splash. It's easy to do, and there's bunches of them. So we are sort of producing a shirt right now, and the plan is that it will be available in August. I'll try and get it out to bloggers and review sites and do some sponsored posts, and then I'll really sort of push the social media element, and hopefully in August I'll know something about whether or not this is going to go anywhere or be this hobby that I had for a while. So that's pretty much it. I wanted to go quick because I think your questions and feedback are going to be the most valuable thing. If you're a questioner, then I'll just answer your questions. If you're the suggestion person, the specific areas that I'd love suggestions on are sort of building social media presence without totally trumpeting our existence just yet. And then also, if you have like copywriting tips on how to take people who are on the website and have them more likely to buy. I think I'm just kind of like, this is a tie, here's what it looks like. I don't know, maybe that's good enough, maybe it's not. I tried to emulate the style of the other brands without straight up jacking their content. So if you have a question, I'd love to hear it, and thanks.
Hi, good morning. I've noticed you here the past few weeks being very dapper and stuff, so I'm not
Oh,
surprised.
stop. Go on.
You were talking about social marketing. I honestly just went to go look up and I couldn't remember how to spell the name of the company. So that could be a little bit of an issue because I'm relatively intelligent and can spell. But I do social marketing, so I have a lot of questions about what you've done, and there's a lot of behind the scenes type of stuff of why you might choose certain social channels and how they connect, how they all connect to one another, and how they help you with your results on the search engines. So, if you'd like to talk afterwards, I definitely spend some time with you and give you some pointers, or because.
I love it.
Okay.
Yeah, I love talking to people.
So I had a question. Are you familiar with Reddit?
Reddit, yes.
Okay, so I'm guessing you're already on Frugal Male Fashion and the other male fashion themed subreddits?
No. I'm familiar with it in that I know Reddit is a place where people go online, but I don't. Yeah, I always associate it with like sort of angry internet people.
Yeah, anger is good. Well, anger is really just a byproduct of passion if you think about it. And what you're really trying to do is find people who are passionate about what you're doing. You're using antique fabrics that are not just, they didn't just come off of a mechanical loom and then thrown into a department store and then cycled back into a Ross or a Marshall's when they weren't moving. These are pieces of fabric from when somebody sat down and was a craftsman with constructing fabric. They're thinking about the thread, the weft, the weave, the dye, all the different things that are involved in that. Now, an additional place you might want to look is a website called artofmanliness.com.
I know Art of Manliness, yeah.
Yeah. One of the things he's really passionate about is going back to heritage, in that we should wear things that people were very passionate about creating. And it sounds like we've got a teacher who saw something that was really cool and decided that instead of spending his summers reading books and traveling and doing whatever, you wanted to create these to satisfy a need. I mean, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So if we want to take that a step farther, I'm looking at the price point on some of your items, and it sounds like you're aiming for people who are very passionate about the individual pieces they're wearing.
Yes.
And you're spot on in looking at, are we just accessories? Are we apparel? Are we shirting? Are we suiting? So my question for you is, are you having trouble sourcing fabric right now? And if yes, have you considered going overseas to the Indochina markets, some of the fabric recyclers out of Africa?
So I'm not having problems right now because we're so small.
Right.
I'm just sort of dipping my toe into the water of global sourcing. I have a couple contacts in Japan who worked at kimono factories, and that's where I got some of the fabric for some of the ties we have now. And then I have about 1,500 yards in my house because a friend of mine who, this is random, she's an organizer, she called me after not talking to her for 2 years and said, I'm in a hoarder house in Cleveland, and this lady has 60 boxes of fabric in her attic, and the last time she made a purchase was 1979. So do you want it? And I said, I don't know, how much? She's like, she said you could have it, and I'm driving down there anyway. So I have like an absurd amount of Tupperwares of fabric, probably enough if the runs are limited to go for probably 2 seasons. Like, it's almost all pure gold. But yeah, the overseas stuff, like people really, oh cool, it's this artisan textile that was hand loomed in Scotland. Yeah, people love it. So I don't have connections in that way, but I think I know where to start looking. Thanks.
Hi, good morning. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Okay. Two things. Number one, you were talking about exposure and
yes.
More exposure. So, and then areas, markets that would be good for you. So I think wedding industry, I mean, that's huge. And Orlando is the #2 destination spot after Vegas. So that would be a great, if you need some ideas on networking group and so forth in town for weddings, let me know.
Awesome. Yeah, I've reached out to like my friends who get engaged and they're like, hey, can I do your ties? And
right.
they're like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, so that would be, because I think it's great, it's not really up to the groom. mostly. It's the bride that decides, and she would love something that would be unique. So, and I can hook you up there.
Awesome.
And the other thing is, I'm a photographer, so I'm thinking on my personal note, I mean, if you want to give me a couple really unique looking designs and I can offer it to different photo shoots to wear for exposure for you, and I'm thinking you could probably do it with other photographers, that would be great exposure.
Sure, absolutely. That's awesome
thoughts.
feedback. So I will find you.
So I'm in the suggestion mode.
Awesome.
So you asked about the copywriting. First of all, if you can't do it yourself, and sometimes you can't, get a good copywriter or content producer that will mimic your voice, because here we were roaring. And so that's the voice that needs to be your copy, okay? Because that will definitely give your site personality. So the jokes that you make and those things, if you can't write them down, and I know some people aren't writers, get someone who will just literally talk through that copy, because this is a tie can be funny, especially the way you say it, but a copywriter can pull that out of you.
Sure.
I'm happy to hook you up with some content providers for that. Second, I'm just going to echo a lot of the places that I think you want to go in terms of your marketing push are the comparable women sites, because marriage, right? So definitely want to follow up with that and make sure that you're affiliate partnering and co-branding, because the women are making a lot of the buying purchases decisions here. So.
Thank you.
I've got one over here. Okay, go ahead, Randall.
Yeah, I got, and this may be fairly obvious, but have you thought of targeting any celebrities and sending them like a little package?
It's tough to target celebrities. I've thought of it, but I'm not really sure how to like find their address, and also most people don't really love getting like spammed, and so like maybe not if it's like physical spam that is a nice tie, but yeah, I don't really know how to like break into that, and I'm also not sure that, and I might be wrong, but that the guy who is like, oh, I really care about my tie, I'm into fashion, is as influenced by, you know, Ryan Gosling as he is influenced by someone who's writing for Valet magazine. So I'm trying to break into the men's fashion channels that I know of, because that seems like that's what I'm influenced by, and I consider myself like someone who would buy this if I wasn't making it. So, yeah.
Yeah, a suggestion for you as another channel. I don't know if you've heard of Urban Daddy.
I have heard of Urban Daddy. I haven't spent a lot of time getting to know Urban Daddy.
Seems like they talk a lot about, you know, these high-end, limited run, you know, premium price point products, specifically, you know, targeting men, urban areas, fashion, that sort of thing. Might be a good opportunity for you to get in, get some initial sales, get some buzz, because obviously they blast stuff out in emails and what have you to drive traffic to the site, so you could get some good traffic that way.
Great.
And along the lines of the celebrity piece, get a good PR person.
Okay.
I heard you say that, but I thought of that too. So.
All right, Teach, over here. Yeah. 3 questions. 1, what's the deal with the trumpet?
What's the deal?
With the trumpet.
The trumpet, okay.
2, wait, it's on the floor, I'll pick it. There it is. In your marketing suggestion, you said it's a little something extra. You've said that a few times. Just kind of your tagline is it's a little something extra. Honestly, you need some like beefcake dudes wearing, you know, top up shots wearing nothing but your tie. Okay, and put that out on Pinterest and Instagram, and that will explode because the viralness of that will be awesome. And then along those same lines, damn it. It'll come back, but...
when it does, I look forward to hearing. I can address the trumpet.
You keep switching between craftsman. Don't ever say the word craftsman again. You're not building a house.
Okay.
You're an artisan.
Artisan, got it.
Okay. And there's a huge difference between an artist and a creative and a craftsperson. You are not a craftsman. You're an artisan. You sell artisan products. specify that, because I would never buy, unless it's a house, something from a craftsman.
All right. Written down, underlined, exclamation point. Artisan, just like those Tostitos that came out a couple years ago. That failed miserably. So the only remaining, right, do you guys remember those? They were like artisanal Tostitos with like Asiago, and everyone's like, I just want to get salsa into my mouth. So the trumpet, I hired a designer because while maybe looking at fabric is something I'm good at, thinking of like conceptual design, a lot of people in this space don't have icons for their brand. It's just like the name. And I just kind of wanted that. I thought it would be cool. I thought it would be something I could use down the road. So my lapel pin is the trumpet, and I include one of these with every order as Lagniappe. Ew. And the reason for the trumpet, the designer came back to me with a couple of ideas. He thought of like maybe a gift box because it's something extra for free that you get. And the trumpet for us is sort of iconic. It's functional, but it's also beautiful. So part of the trumpet's allure is that it's like, it just looks really cool, but it also does something. It produces sound. It's a shape and a silhouette that hasn't changed in a long time, so it's classic. And also there's a little bit of a hat tip to the New Orleans heritage if you're starting to think about jazz and those sorts of things without being so brazen, like, hey, only buy from us if you're from the Louisiana Gulf Coast. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on there. Yep.
Okay, one angle you may want to take to kind of differentiate yourself is there are lots of high-end fabrics out there. Mm-hmm. And you kind of, I know I'm reluctant to buy a $180 shirt.
As you should be.
But I like the idea of reusing older fabric and putting a little history or even a little card about where the fabric came from may open up the door to going into something like old sports flags, old, I don't know, flags or sails from a boat, something with historical or some type of emotional connection to what it's made of.
Sure, absolutely. So when I've done the pop-ups, I have like a book that has a swatch of every fabric and it has kind of its backstory. It's hard for me to include that like when I send it to them because they've already got the fabric if they're ordering online. So there's a description on the website, but there's nothing really they can touch and feel. It reminds me of the Portlandia sketch where they're asking about the chicken. Anybody watch Portlandia? No, I'll just skip it. Anyways, you know what I'm talking about. All right. But yeah, that's a good idea. I like the idea of the different materials too. So thank you.
I have one suggestion for you. I'm a meeting and event planner by trade. So I've done a lot of high-end travel where I'm in a boutique property that has an awesome gift shop that people would love to buy something unique. And that is, I would say, something that you could do in the Caribbean, in Florida, all over, any kind of boutique that's looking for something unique, not just any other brand. So.
Absolutely, thanks.
Over here. Hi. Hey again. I have a few things. First of all, on talking about the fabric and the story and being special to people, have you thought of opening it up for people to provide their own fabric? Get something made out of, a grandmother's wedding dress or something like that?
I haven't thought about that. I know when we talk about scaling something, that's probably off the table unless they're like, hey, here's your $300 bow tie. Because it's as easy for me to make 10 as it is for me to make 1. So I thought about that a little, and that's something I do for friends if they're like, all right, I need to match. Like when I was teaching, some of my students were like, I'm going to prom. Can you like make me a tie that looks like this? And I'd be like, yes, I can. But in the long run, because I'm a sweetheart, but in the long run, I don't think that that's going to have a super big place in the business model.
You could also think about things like Disney. You have these people that are fanatics. I live with 3 of them. And I'm embarrassed about some of the Disney stuff that we have in our house just because it was once used at Polynesian or something. So when they redesigned to be able to take, we're not talking great material, quality, but as far as when, taking pieces of their history They even do, cast member exclusives where they'll make pins, and they have little pieces of the fabric from costumes in that, and they sell for many hundreds of dollars on eBay. So there's a lot of different ways, and then you're partnering with big. And my other thing was, I was just speaking with a gentleman yesterday who is launching a signature hair product design product nationally. Sorry, he has worked with major celebrities, and I'm just thinking that those are avenues for you to get in. He's a barber, and then he has these shops. So there's other ways of getting to the celebrities, and not reaching out to the celebrities themselves, but the celebrity dressers, whatever they're called, the people that actually pick out their clothes and design. You might have a better chance of reaching them than the direct celebrity.
Yeah. I saw George Clooney's dog walker's assistant in Target once. Okay, I think there was one more. Short on time. Don, what's up? Just yell at me.
I'm sorry, it's part of the rules. He can't.
Oh, no.
We'll do
In the meantime, I will say one of our most popular things is fabric from the Florida toll roads. So if you've gone through the toll road and they have those shirts that are like, hey, toll roads, I got a couple yards of that and made a bunch of pocket squares and bandanas, and people were like, oh, it's so cool, it says Orlando on it. Who wants to fondly remember toll roads? No one. Okay.
I had just finished wallpapering my bathroom with toll booth receipts. One of the things that I'm kind of known for saying is that you're led by mentors or you're driven by tormentors. And the best of the mentors you've got to pursue. One mentor, a friend of mine in your space, is a guy named Kenny Marconich. You can look him up on LinkedIn. He has a company called Capital Clothing. I sent a guy to him 6 years ago. He was a 19-year-old kid. 3 weeks later, he's flying all over the country, and he's getting his little Christian T-shirts into the entire world. He might be a good contact for you. I'm happy to make the intro. But I was getting a lot of other things. I was picking up on bold ties. Has anyone done that? I mean, bow ties and bold ties, or because the more unique it is, I think the more that it's got. There's probably a niche there somewhere in that space.
Sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks.
Well, I'll just cut it here. We have time.
Thank you so much, Steve. To end on a good note, for 1 Million Cups, what's something that we as a community can help do for you today?
Sure. So if you like men's fashion, you can obviously come follow us on social media at Lagniappe Co. If you know someone who's getting married, or if you just know someone who has to wear a tie every day and would want to have something unique that stood out, I'm super in the market for people to know more about us. And then the last thing is, I'm not a business person, so if you're sitting there and you're like, I know that about you, I'm open to any and all suggestions.
Well, thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause. So just for today, I want to let you guys know we have something really exciting that's happening with 1 Million Cups across the nation. Today, we are launching an official campaign. So if you know anybody who has presented at 1 Million Cups ever, we want you to tell them to check us out. I have a video for you. It's called 1 in a Million.
We're looking for 1 in a million. What does 1 in a million look like? Have you ever seen it? Does it look like this? Or this? If you've ever presented at a 1 Million Cups gathering held every week in more than 70 locations across the country, then maybe 1 in a million looks like you. This year, for the first time ever, open exclusively for 1 Million Cups entrepreneurs, the 1 in a Million Startup Showdown will be a featured event during Global Entrepreneurship Week. 1 in a Million was created to provide educational resources to entrepreneurs and showcase some of the stellar startups in the 1 Million Cups community. 15 finalists will be selected to come to the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation in Kansas City on November 17th and 18th, where they will receive coaching and gain valuable insights to sharpen their startups. The top 5 startups will be selected to take the stage for a first-of-its-kind Wednesday morning presentation that will be streamed live to all 1 Million Cup sites across the country. The winning startup takes home $10,000. Here's what you need to know. Your startup must have presented at a 1 million cups before August 2nd, 2015. Your startup must be younger than 5 years old and based in the United States. Your startup should have plans to grow with a scalable and disruptive business model. Don't wait to submit your company for this nationwide competition. 1 in a Million will accept applications through August 7th. That's it. Actually, there's more to it than that. So visit us on the web to learn more about how your startup can become 1 in a million.
So that is one of the most exciting things that 1 Million Cups has ever launched. We're really excited to be part of it. If you guys know anybody who has presented, who would qualify, or interested, or know someone who wants to come in and present before August 7th, send them our way. We'll be pushing it out on social media, so if you follow us on Twitter, if you follow us on Facebook, even if you follow us as a website, we're gonna start pushing it out. So you have, starting today, until August 7th to get going with it. So if you have any interest, let us know. We're really excited and pumped to do this. And 10 grand, any entrepreneur can easily use. Anyways, remember today is, I know it's about to go to sleep, right?
Alert from login window.
She talks
This
to me.
computer has been scheduled to move to sleep automatically.
So anyways, we have lots of donuts out. I know, she talks to me. We have a lot of donuts out there. Please remember, it's Dave's last day. Give him a really great hug. He's kind of awkward about it, but just move in. I'm serious. I send him all the weird ones. And he's like, Steph, why are you sending me these? Okay, thank you. So please, throw him a hug. We have a lot of sponsors to thank. We want to thank Rollins. We want to thank Canvas. We know that you're watching. Want to thank Randall. Thank you so much for live streaming with us. All of us organizers do work on hugs. Ron's in the back. What's up, Ron? Thank you. And remember, show us some love on social media, please, and come back next week. And Angela's reminding me, next week, remember, we are not located here. We are in the Kaufman? SunTrust. Not Kaufman at all. I'm not familiar with Rollins. Angela, can you help me? Where it is? It's just right across the sidewalk? I need you. Sure. Okay, I'm out.
Because if I'm not on the mic, I get yelled at. So we will be across this courtyard, the building across the way. When you go in the entrance that looks like the opposite of this one, just walk straight through, and on your left will be the SunTrust Auditorium. And as a reminder, because I kind of fussed at the people that were actually here on time. If you're late when we're across the way, there's no sneaking in. You literally kind of walk in front of everybody. I know, I've done it. So try and be here on time next week because it's at 9 a.m. across the way in the SunTrust Auditorium. And we will be making lots of exciting announcements coming up. So glad to have you all. Bring a friend. Bye.
Oh,